The incoming president wants a deal that will end this war, that he will not inherit the headache that the previous administration or the current administration is leaving him. We did note that a number of weeks ago, the incoming president tweeted that there will be all hell to pay if the hostages are not released by the time he is inaugurated. Now, it doesn't even appear, according to the terms of the deal that have been published, that all of the hostages will be released by the time he is inaugurated. So it remains to be seen what he means by all hell to pay. But this deal that we're currently discussing does not see all of the hostages released by the time he's inaugurated. It's a phased deal so that Hamas can ensure that it remains in power in Gaza in exchange for releasing some hostages.
We do seem near to a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, but the process appears to be getting entangled with the transfer of power in Washington. The outgoing administration would love to have a farewell foreign policy win, but some suspect Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu could delay to give Donald Trump an inauguration present. Daniel Rubenstein is a former Netanyahu advisor and co-founder of the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Do you think that's a bit distasteful if that really is what's going on? Because, I mean, if a deal's there, it should just be done as soon as possible to end various people's suffering.
I agree with you that a deal should be done as soon as possible. The deal that we have on the table allows Hamas to keep some hostages and make further demands. It's a phased deal. The details are still being worked out. What we know is that in the first phase of the deal, Hamas is supposed to release 33 living hostages in exchange for many prisoners released from Israeli prisons people who have tried to harm Israelis. And in the meantime, Hamas will continue to hold more hostages so that it can make more demands. The reason that Hamas took hostages is so that it could offer these hostages, so that it could torture the people of Israel and say, here's your daughter, here's your sister. If you want them back, you have to allow us to remain in power so that we'll be in position to carry out more October 7th massacres. So this is the way that Hamas is negotiating, and it's not just Hamas, it's their backers, primarily Qatar, that is supporting this Hamas position. Qatar is effectively telling Hamas to keep the hostages until you get a deal that allows you to remain in power and to carry out more October 7th massacres in the future.
We'll get to that in a second. Can I just check, though, in phase 2 and 3, are more hostages supposed to be released?
Yes, after phase 1, which is the release of 33 hostages, this is women, minors, older people, what they are calling humanitarian category, although I consider every hostage to be in the humanitarian category. In phase 2, the Israeli military is supposed to withdraw 100%, according to reports, 100% from Gaza in exchange for the remaining hostages. So in exchange for Hamas remaining in power and being in a position to benefit from any Gaza reconstruction materials, to be in a position to control the food supply in Gaza. In exchange for this power that Hamas will have, it's offering to release the remaining hostages, but it remains to be seen if Hamas will actually do this. Hamas and its backers seem to be in a good position by holding at least a few hostages so that they can make demands forever.
Okay. Do you, Daniel, I don't know why you would know this, but you might have some reason to understand that this is the same deal that I think it's fair to say that we've seen before. It hasn't changed, but the circumstances have changed because we have a transfer of power in the White House. Is your reading then that Donald Trump approves, in inverted commas, as much as you can, this deal?
Yes, I think the incoming president wants a deal that will end this war, that he will not inherit the headache that the previous administration or the current administration is leaving him. We did note that a number of weeks ago, the incoming president tweeted that there will be all hell to pay if the hostages are not released by the time he is inaugurated. Now, it doesn't even appear, according to the terms of the deal that have been published, that all of the hostages will be released by the time he is inaugurated. So it remains to be seen what he means by all hell to pay. But this deal that we're currently discussing does not see all of the hostages released by the time he's inaugurated. It's a phased deal so that Hamas can ensure that it remains in power in Gaza in exchange for releasing some hostages. So we'll wait and see what the incoming administration will do after noon on January 20th.
Do you have confidence in Donald Trump that he is going to act fairly?
I certainly have hope that he will act fairly. It remains to be seen how he will apply his pressure and what all hell to pay really means.
Mm.
We have not seen in the past 15 months significant international pressure on Hamas, or especially Hamas's backers, particularly the government of Qatar, which is where Hamas is headquarters. You will recall that on the afternoon of October 7th, 3:15 p.m. on October 7th, as the massacre was ongoing and everyone sees what's happening, Qatar published a statement condemning Israel and saying that Israel was solely responsible for what was happening. Qatar, at the same time, is leading the charge with its international television network, Al Jazeera, accusing Israel of genocide at every moment of airtime that it can possibly squeeze in this accusation. So Qatar is positioning itself as a mediator, but at the same time, it seems to be Hamas's backer and Hamas's agent. And I'm hoping that the incoming administration and other responsible governments around the world may change the way that it applies pressure and publicly condemns Qatar for the negative role that it has played since October 7th.
Okay, finally, I wanted to ask you about Antony Blinken's remarks. He says that for all the Hamas soldiers that Israel has killed, it has just created new ones, which I'm sure comes as no surprise to you. But this was always, many people say this was always going to be the case. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't, in your opinion, that you shouldn't have done, Israel shouldn't have done what they did. However, has this war just created another conflict down the line?
I think the October 7th massacre inspired an enormous amount of people. We saw not just the 3,000 Hamas terrorists who invaded on October 7th, but thousands of civilians in Gaza followed them and thousands more cheered in the streets. So the act
And
itself of the massacre, of the invasion.
thousands probably didn't though. Would you accept that, or do you think that 100% of people in Gaza cheer on Hamas?
No, I'm saying that thousands of
Okay.
people cheered on Hamas, and it's only normal that among a population where Hamas has significant support, that more people would join. At the same time, Hamas functions as a mafia in Gaza.
Mm.
It has a lot of power. Now, the big question is, what kind of recruits is Hamas getting? At the end of World War II, the Nazis were recruiting Germans who were quite young, 15, 14, 13, 12 years old, and they were not so well trained, but would we count these as new recruits? So it remains to be seen if Hamas's new recruits are actually able to form some type of fighting force or if they are playing a smaller role. But Israel had no choice after the October 7th massacre but to attempt to remove Hamas from power in Gaza. And doing nothing would
Mm.
have simply inspired many more people to join Hamas's cause and see it as an effective way to pressure Israel to dissolve itself.
Okay, Daniel Rubenstein, thank you for talking to us. He's a former Netanyahu advisor and co-founder of the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office.